Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We'll give everyone a few minutes to join, but while we're waiting for everyone to join, Joe, do you mind popping that poll in the for everyone to put what year their student is?
And hopefully let's see, mostly seniors, since this is what we'll be focusing on. Let's launch that poll. So you'll see it right on your screen if you don't mind just saying what year you are. Should have a lot of 2026s, maybe a few others, which is fine. But just so everyone knows, the bulk of this content in today's workshop will be focused on uh, parents of seniors and seniors going through the process.
Still helpful tips if you have I'm sure a junior or sophomore, whatever year your student is, but yeah, really
So far,
focus
it's
on.
100% senior parents. They are ready to rock. And also, if you can just in the queue and no, the chat, just list where you're from, city and state. We're gonna have 90 minutes today. It would be great to kind of see where everyone's from.
We're definitely well represented, I think, geographically speaking. As you can see here, Middletown, New Jersey. We're Joe and I are both in New Jersey, but I'm down in West Long Branch, so Monmouth County. Joe's a little bit north. He's up in Westfield, but you got two Jersey guys today.
I got some California, so good
Yeah,
morning. Hope you brought your coffee for this.
Anchorage,
Love it.
Alaska.
I don't know what time it is there, but before 9 a.m., I'm gonna assume. Bridgewater. Love the mall there. Bridgewater, New Jersey. Cool. All right, we'll do quick introductions and we'll get started. Again, this is a little different than our normal presentations. You have us for 90 minutes. This is calling it a workshop. We're going to present you information and really focus on what's happening right now in the senior application cycle for college, both the admissions side and financial aid and tips moving forward to help you all. Um, we've both been doing this long enough that we realize this is a really stressful time. But any holiday season is stressful. Now you're adding on like where your child's going to go for the next 4 years and what paying $400,000 looks like. So we get it. So we're going to try to hopefully calm you down a little bit, but also want to answer as many questions as possible. If you have a question, can you try to put it in the Q&A at the bottom? And that would be best for us. And we'll try to get to them throughout the time. Again, we have 90 minutes, so a little bit longer. And really appreciate you guys coming. So, real quick introductions. My name's Joe Korfmacher. Um, I've been in college counseling my whole life. So I got out of St. Joe's University in 2008, and then went straight into graduate school at Seton Hall University for school counseling. And while I was at grad school, I was able to get a job as a guidance counselor, and then quickly really loved the college piece of it, and took a job at a private high school in Manhattan as their director of college counseling. I was there for 7 years, and then I was at another company that does strictly college admissions for about 5 years. I was a director there, and yeah, love helping families throughout getting I work personally with families at College Aid Pro through the admission cycle and starting to get some acceptances. Got early decision to Boston University email yesterday from one of my girls in California, actually. Wash U in St. Louis. So they're starting to trickle in now, and that's always fun to see the end result there. But I'll let Kevin introduce himself.
This is a fun time of year. I think it could be fun or it could be really stressful. It could also be a little bit sad. That's the tough part with early decision getting released right around the holidays. Um, but it also, I think, gives good reason to listen to what we have to say today, but also potentially a reason to pivot and to look at other options. But anyways, yeah, I'm Kevin Murphy. I'm one of the financial aid experts here at CAP, and I guess just a little background. I started in financial services, and I quickly fell in love with college financial aid, as strange as that might sound. And the FAFSA, the CSS, helping families figure out how they're going to pay and loans and all of that. I like that a lot more than the rest of the work that I was doing in financial services. So I started in 2018 And I was fortunately able to pivot in 2023 to just doing college financial aid work exclusively. But since 2018, I've been helping families figure out this whole financial aid process. And fortunately speaking, I've been able to work with over 1,000 families, a lot of them in New Jersey, but since COVID, since 2020, a lot of them all over the country, even all over the world. And I think when it comes to financial aid and when it comes to admissions, between myself and Joe, you've got two two good folks here to talk to today. But I'll
Kevin, you want to get the deck up? There's two
yeah,
questions I'll answer while you're doing that, and you can sort of
yeah,
give our background pitch, and then we'll get into it. So Andrea asks, several college admits via early action already, which is great. Congrats. They don't seem to include any financial information. When should we expect to get that? Does it come in the college portal? So every school is different. Some will, give your acceptance with the um, award letter information, but a lot will wait a little bit. It takes some time to get through the system on the financial aid side of it. So it can be a week, it can be a month. We see a lot of times where it's sort of like mid-January, early February that you get those award letters. Often it will be sent as an email and then your student's son or daughter's portal. There's no harm in reaching out though and asking them and just shooting them an email or call and just saying when you can expect to get the award letter, but should be no concern right now if you don't have it yet.
zero
Uh,
concern. And
yeah.
there's a chance that you won't get those until March. So that's just part of the process, unfortunately. And just know that you don't, for early action, even though it's early action, you find out sooner in terms of acceptance, you still do not need to commit until May 1st, regardless of what the schools say in terms of pressure along the way.
And an anonymous attendee, maybe you work for the New York Times and that's why you're asking. Just kidding. Ask about the New York
We've got a
Times.
spy on the call
Yeah.
today.
Op-ed about ED that came out this week, and if we have opinion about the fairness, lack thereof, of ED in schools in Trent. So I'll give my and try to be as unbiased as possible. I don't like early decision. I know it was created just to help the colleges and help them their yield rate and puts teenagers and parents in a really tough position early on to decide where they want to go and where they will need to pay to go. Does it help students get in? Yes, it can definitely help you get in, but often those negatives outweigh getting in with the financial piece of it. But I don't see the ED going away. I see it increasing. Michigan just, started early decision this year, and they did that in a direct, reason because of international students and maybe being worried that there would be less international students applying with the current administration. Doesn't seem to be the case actually, but that's why they did that, just to shore up their incoming class. But yeah, I personally don't like it, only because it can put parents and students in a really tough place financially, and just having to make a really important decision early on without all the information. Anything you'd add to that, Kevin?
I think if you do your homework, and I agree with everything you're saying, but I think in some cases, family does all the homework that they need to do to make sure ED is right for them, and that's like they know going in that's where the student wants to go and everything else. Then I I get that it can definitely be a little bit helpful, not only in terms of acceptance, but I also think just peace of mind knowing you're accepted, and even getting the offer earlier and all that. But I agree with you, for the most part, early decision, they're giving the school the cards, and can make the appeals harder, it can make a lot of things harder. It doesn't make them impossible, but it's just it can make the process a little bit more difficult. So I totally agree with you.
And Gloria, we will answer your question. I'm going to get into that, sort of the pros and cons of ED2
Yeah.
compared to RD, just so you know. So we'll talk through that. And if I don't answer it, you can ask another question a little bit later on. Kevin, you want to talk College J Pro? Then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got a small mission, right, to end the student debt crisis. But in all seriousness, our goal is to help families figure out this process to shop smarter. We find that most people, they shop for college backwards, right? They say, oh, we'll figure it out if you get in. And then their child gets into all these schools and nothing's affordable. And it's not the right way to do it. We want to make sure that every family is not only informed and empowered to understand this process, because it's extremely confusing and stressful, but again, just has the tools and also have the ability to know what colleges should cost way ahead of time. So just a little bit about us. But
Great. So if you've been on one of our webinars in the past few months, you've seen this slide. I'm not going to go into as much detail because I really want to focus on what's happening this cycle. But I do think it's important in the context. So, just sort of quickly through these. Last year, we saw a 6% rise in the number of students applying via the Common App. And this affects everything. Whereas, in the past, it was a little more, more challenging to apply to colleges. So you'd really select, your 4 or 5 that you wanted. And now with students applying to double-digit schools, and it's much easier to apply, it causes some problems on the admissions side, within the office with who they actually should accept, because it's not just about accepting students, it's about accepting the right students and the percent of students that will actually come. If they under enroll, a school is in big trouble financially. And if they over enroll, it's another problem because they got to find housing for these students. So they got to find that happy medium. So more and more students applying around the world to more and more colleges causes issues and changes the odds of what may be a safety target or reach school for you. Selective majors. This is important. This, for seniors, you've chosen your major. However, if you are still waiting to apply to a regular decision school, maybe some early action schools didn't come back so favorable for you. You may want to potentially apply to a less competitive major. It all depends on the schools, what you're looking at. But applying to some majors like business and computer science, they have far lower admit rates than colleges themselves. A lot of families may assume incorrectly that getting into a top major at a public university is easier than getting into an Ivy League school. Oftentimes that's not even true. Some of the most selective academic programs in the country live inside the flagship schools, public schools, and their admit rates rival Ivy's. UCLA computer science last year, when we had the numbers, they admitted less than 3% of all applicants. So in the admit rate to Harvard is 4 to 6%, depending on the year. So it can be difficult. It doesn't do you justice just to Google University of Illinois admit rate. If you're out of state, it's going to be far different than in state. And if you're out of state applying to their top computer science major, it's going to be far, far lower than that. So it is important to look at that, talk to a professional about this, and decide the right path going forward. Early applications, that's what we're going to talk about. And I have a really awesome resource that I'm going to share. Since you guys are joining us today, midday, you get access to it. Usually this is just for professionals, but let me put this in the chat. Will be easiest. Hold on, and then I'll talk through it a bit. Everyone gets it, and there it is. Okay, so I just put that in the chat. This is from a couple, a married couple that they're educational consultants. They do this every year, where they put together a really cool interactive chart showing every college that has early decision in ED2, if they have it, their admit rates for ED, their admit rates for regular decision, and the percent of students that come into their class via ED versus regular, and helps going forward with planning. As you'll see, though, a lot of the more selective schools in there, the ED admit rate early decision is far higher than the regular decision. All right. If they offer ED2, sometimes that is another way to get in, to commit yourself to that college. And you can see what percent exactly the ratio of ED versus RD that is enrolling in the class, and that will tell you a lot about that school and your chances of getting in. Many top schools have and are going to continue to fill their freshman class each year via binding early decision. An early decision means if you get in, that's where you're going. You're supposed to withdraw your other applications. Tulane is a pretty selective college, but it's almost impossible to get in unless you apply early decision. Their regular admit rate is very, very low. Vanderbilt um, admitted or 61% of its incoming class through ED last year. And Northeastern, who's VP now of enrollment, was at Tulane, is looking to increase that each year as well. So more than 50% of their incoming class, they want to come in through early decision. And Kevin may speak to this a little bit more. They they will look at, unless it's a need blind school, they will look at, you know, your willingness to pay, and it can help potentially, in getting in. But then again, you also are stuck with that large bill. But feel free to save that chart if you have younger kids or you're thinking about applying ED2. Use that. It's a good resource, and I hope that helps. Test scores returning to power. Talked about this a lot. Parent of senior doesn't really matter for you at this point. If you have younger kids, though, more and more schools are requiring the test scores, so make sure that you are, um, your younger kids are preparing for that. They should take it 2 to 3 times, do their best. Um, High scores can help you get in and get money from the colleges, so they are important. If your student just is not a good test taker and doesn't do well, that's fine. There are plenty of really great colleges out there that are test optional. If you're in California or you're applying to any of the University of California schools like UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, Berkeley, all that, they're still, as of now, test blind, meaning they won't look at your SAT or ACT. And finally, the personal narrative. So this is important if your son or daughter is still thinking about applying regular decision in schools or ED2. The essay is super important. So go back to it. They probably wrote it, maybe in the summer, early fall. Look at it with fresh eyes. See if there's any way, if anything they want to change or improve it. You can change the essay on the Common App, even if you've applied to other colleges, as long as you haven't applied to that school. You can change it. You can edit it if you want. You don't have to, but it still remains one of the most powerful ways to stand out. And I'm not going to get into how it may evolve. That's for future webinars. But for this year, still the essay, the written document, that shares a student's voice, who they are, how they may be in college. The human reader reading this and connecting to the student is still very important. So if there's still more schools that they're applying to, take a look at it, make sure it looks good. Let's go on to the next slide here. All right, so some early stats. So we talked about what was happening coming into the year. We've now, I said 6%. We've now seen total applicants already up 7%. So schools were nervous that the numbers would dip a little bit. I don't have the international numbers yet, but total applicants are up 7%. So we're seeing an increase. So some schools that thought there would be a decrease were wrong. We got an increase. So we'll see how that plays out this year. First generation applicants are up 10%. Part of that is with what the Common App is doing, and they're targeting first gen and low income students in communities and trying to get them engaged and apply to more colleges. Families using their fee waivers up 6%. An average number of applications per student is now 8.5 applications. A lot of my students will apply to 10 to 12, and that's my guidance, just with the missions piece of it being so complicated and the finance piece of it. So, but we're seeing nationwide more and more students applying. And I want to talk through the direct admit feature. So that's brand new to the Common App. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'll show you that and talk through it. And you may not be aware of this as a parent, but if your student is using the Common App, which most likely they are, there's a new feature on there that once they start putting their information in and start adding colleges, a little thing to the left is going to pop up and says direct admissions. And depending on your child's GPA that they put in, test scores, all of that, there's going to be colleges that appear there, and basically will tell you, if you add this college, you're getting it. And all you have to do is, add the school, hit submit, you will get in. You're not, bounded to that decision by any means. It's just, an easy acceptance, most likely will come with money. I found this happening more with students that are sort of on the lower GPA range. And I think it's just a marketing way for colleges to get in front of more families. But usually these don't have any application fees, and they get an acceptance pretty soon with good money attached to it. So I think it's good for some families. So if you aren't aware of this, jump on your son or daughter's Common App if they allow, and start checking that out. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so early decision tips. So let me see. Do I do this? I'll do this. Yeah. Early decision. If your son or daughter has applied early decision, can you put it in the chat just so we can see that? If you want to put the college, great. If not, you can just put yes. Or but we'd love to see that for here.
While we're waiting for folks to drop that in
Yeah,
the
go
chat,
ahead.
I do want to say that I'll do my best to answer admissions questions, but I'm going to leave some admissions questions for Joe when I talk about financial aid. I don't want people to think I'm ignoring questions in the Q&A.
Cool. All right, so we got some big ones. Yeah, the IV's coming out soon, I think next week. So early decision, as a reminder, you can apply to one college early decision. That's binding. If you get in, there's three outcomes. You're admitted, great. You are denied, not so great, but at least you know. And then, or you're deferred, and that just means they're going to put you in a regular admission, and you'll be reviewed again with a decision usually coming out in March. And if you are put in the regular decision, you are now no longer bounded to go. So you can be deferred the regular admission and be admitted to that school, but you no longer have to go, and you can compare your options. If admitted, you really want to see what that award letter is. We had a lot of different families. One, at were admitted, they're from the West Coast, admitted to a private school here on the East Coast, and they gave them no money, and it's about $95,000 a year that they have to pay out of pocket or of loans. Your best, what you want to do if you get that and it's like, oh my God, this is more money than we can afford. We don't want to take out X amount in loans each year. You do want to appeal it. And I'll have Kevin talk more about that later. If you appeal and they give you nothing more or not enough, you can get out of the early decision agreement by saying, I just can't financially do this. Right. So you can do that. Just make sure you're talking if you have a private counselor or a guidance counselor through that process. If you're deferred, so that means you're put in the regular admission pool. Do you want to stay in the running? All right. Most colleges will just automatically put you in the regular decision, but many in their portal will say, do you want to stay do you want to be moved to regular decision? Yes or no, or just be taken off. Just make sure they indicate yes. But again, a lot of times it's just automatic, but you do want to just check the portal, make sure if it's still a school that they want, that they are still in there for regular decision, and update the school. First quarter grades, first semester grades that usually come out in January, early February. If they're good, get those sent out through your guidance counselor to the college immediately. Any updates in your extracurriculars, any resume improvements, leadership stuff, things like that. Anything that wasn't on the initial application, send it to them. And just, I think your son or daughter should shoot a quick email that says, disappointed that I was deferred, but really excited that I still have the opportunity to get in through regular decision. Colleges will monitor this, and again, it's yield management. They want to know who they accept, who will come, and if you're in regular decision, you no longer bounded to go. So you want to make sure they know that's still your top school if it is. If you're denied, a lot of students are denied an early decision. It's sad, but at least you have an answer. What's the game plan? Hopefully you have applied to other early action schools. You have or will be hitting submit on regular decision schools. A lot of those deadlines are January 1st, so they're coming up. Or is there an early decision to school? And in the chat, I'm going to put in a list of schools that, like the most popular schools that have ED2. So let me just, where's the chat? Let me do this here. Fairly long list, but just so you guys have that. So these schools I put in have early decision two. So to be clear, not every college that has early decision has early decision two. Not every college has that. So you do want to check that first. Um, why does ED2 exist? Two main reasons. One, it's for students that just need more time. All right. They wanted to make sure that this was a school for them, went through the finances with their parents, with the school, academics, social, all that. This is the college for them. And it gives them a later deadline. So they can apply January 1st, usually is that deadline, as opposed to November 1st. So it gives them a more time to decide. The second reason is for students that were deferred or denied from their ED1 school and now have a second choice for ED2. And no, you cannot apply ED2 if you were deferred or denied ED1 from that school. All right, so they'll just put you in regular decision. But if you want to apply to a different school early decision too, you can do that. It is it's a binding agreement as well. So same thing, ED1, if you're admitted, you are supposed to go there. And it does give you a better chance. So Gloria asked earlier, the benefit is it gives you a better chance of being admitted. The con is just like ED1, you are often, there's less negotiation power with the price tag and how much you have to pay. Do not feel the pressure of early decision. I mentioned this earlier, my own belief. Early decision is in place purely for the college's benefit, not the student. It helps them know exactly what their incoming class will look like. It can help them accept more families that can pay full. It is way too big of a decision for teenagers to have to make early in the year. So I don't want you as a parent to feel that you have to do early decision two going forward. Apply regular decision. You have applied already a bunch of early action schools. See what your the decisions look like, and then again, you have until May to make a decision. So don't feel the pressure, but I do want to be clear. It does help you get in, as you saw. If you open up that link I sent, the numbers are clear. You have a better chance of getting admitted to that school if you apply ED2. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Just want to add one thing real quick.
Yep, go ahead.
So accepted early decision, right? The schools tell you to rescind all of your other applications. However, if at the current offer, right, at that current price, you can't afford it and you're in the middle of an appeal, please wait until you get the appeal results to have your student rescind all of their other applications, because for all you know, the appeal won't go in your favor and it's still unaffordable and they have to look elsewhere. That's come up quite a few times over the last week or so. So I just wanted to mention that. But
I'm gonna ask a couple or answer a couple questions while I
yeah, there's quite a few admissions
go
questions.
through here. I'll answer a few, then I'll get back to the
Yeah.
here. But this is workshop. We got more time, so so my son applied EA at Princeton, was deferred. What are the chances of getting in as a deferred applicant? And yeah, I know they do the single choice, so kind of real or restrictive, and can affect how you apply early other schools. But I've had a lot of students get deferred from Princeton, and most of them, to be honest, did not get in. Strong candidates. I think it's really tough. The Princeton, if they like you in the EA, they're going to admit you, and then they open up for the regular decision pool. So chances are probably slim. But again, I don't know your student's application or anything there, but just numbers wise, more likely than not, they won't get in, after being deferred. Let's see. Has Vanderbilt notified all ED? I don't have a student this year applying early decision to Vanderbilt. Kevin, do you know? I don't think they have. They usually are like between the 14th and the 18th. So this week, but it may be like tomorrow or Thursday that they. But Kevin, do you know?
I have students applying early decision. They haven't heard yet.
Okay, so yeah, not out yet, but should be any day yet. And you would know on the portal if like they're missing anything. So I don't. Yeah, the decisions have not been given out yet. Um, let's see. Any unique factors regarding early acceptance, not ED, pros, con. So I think early action you may be talking about. Early action, really, there's no like admission advantages. It just speeds up the process. So you find out around now as opposed to maybe February, March, or even early April. So it just gives you more time, it gives you more information, more time to decide on where you want to attend. Um,
I agree. I think financially speaking, it definitely helps. I think it helps families in terms of peace of mind. I could be totally wrong, but I do think maybe one or two schools, the EA acceptance odds are higher than some RD. Again, I could be wrong with that, but I think for the most part, gives you peace of mind, lets you know the offer sooner, lets you know acceptance sooner, lets you plan. Am I right or wrong with that, Joe, in terms of EA acceptances?
I wasn't listening to you. I was reading other questions. So I'm going to assume you're right, but if you want to repeat it, I'll listen to you now.
No, we'll just assume I was
Okay.
right. That's
Yeah,
fine with
I'm
me.
sure you're right. Let me answer two more questions and we'll get into it. Is it relatively easy to change a school in the Common App from regular decision to early action to early decision two if your kid is not admitted to first ED school? All right, so two things. If you have not applied to that second school, absolutely. It's just going into the school, the questions, and changing how you want to apply, and then you can hit submit. If you've already submitted it, you can't change it on the comment. That's not going to happen. But if you applied regular decision or early action to one college, have applied and haven't got a decision back yet, a lot of schools will allow you to change that to early decision two if you want. Again, this helps them, so they will allow that. Sometimes you can do it in the portal for the student. It'll be somewhere in there where it just says, do you want to, change the ED2? Or you can reach out to the college directly and ask them. Not every school will allow you to do it. But if you've already applied on the Common App, you can't do it on the Common App itself. And then daughter deferred from Georgetown, now in regular decision. What can she do to keep her application alive? I'm going to talk about that in about 2 minutes. So, all right, let's get back to slides here. All right, regular decision. So what does regular decision mean? That is the main way that, I mean, before there's all these different early actions, early decisions, it was the only way. Just, the application has a deadline, you apply and you find out. Now it's later in the year. So as opposed to being uh, October 15th, like Clemson, or November 1st, like most colleges, regular decision generally is January 1st. For some state schools, it's earlier. Like you see, their one um, deadline is December 1st. University of Washington's November 15th, I believe. But most schools on the Common App, their regular decision deadlines are January 1st or February 1st, sometimes later. The possible outcomes there a little different from early action, early decision. You're either admitted, you're denied, or you're waitlisted. So for regular admission, there's no deferral. They may waitlist your child. And what that means is you're put onto a list, a literal list at the school. And later in the spring, once they have a sense of the amount of students that they accept it, what their numbers look like, and as people start enrolling into the college and paying their deposits, they're going to monitor that. And if it's lower than they need, they're going to start pulling people off the wait list. The problem with wait lists is it could happen. You can get pulled off the wait list in March, or you can get pulled off the wait list in July. Do I speak Arabic? I do not. I'm sorry. I hardly speak English that great. So I'm going to just stick with this language. But thank you for asking the question. And if you are taken off the wait list, even if you have committed to another college, you can then tell the college, um, I'm no longer coming here. I got taken off a wait list and go to that school, even if it's in the summer, if you want. That's actually, there's a term for it. It's called summer melt, when schools begin losing students to other institutions because of the wait list. But those are three outcomes. None of them are you're bounded to. So if you admit it, you don't have to go. If you're denied, obviously you can't go. And if you're waitlisted and get taken off, it's your choice. Um, Keep your options open. Unlike early decision, the benefit of regular decision is it gives you lots of um, time to decide. And if you have 5 or 6 schools, maybe a couple of them are giving you more money, you can talk to the other colleges about potentially giving you that type of money or more. And you just have time. If you haven't submitted regular decision schools yet, stay hyper focused on supplemental essays. So I already talked about the personal statement, the big essay, college essay. Everyone knows that. The supplemental essays are smaller, shorter, but are asked specifically by the college. So therefore, naturally, they care a little bit more about them. They're deciding we want to ask applicants these questions. The Common App essay, everyone answers that. They're asking it for a reason. They want to either see why you really want to go to that school, what makes you a good candidate for that specific major in the college. But they really just want to know. They use this to identify one, writing who you are as a person, but how interested is this candidate in this college? So again, it's not just about my GPA's here, my SATs are here, I get in. No, they're choosing students. They have their methodology that they're using in the back room to decide. So hyper focus on those. Make sure you do a good job with them. Update your resume. Again, if there's any enhancements that you want to add, do that. And if you haven't applied to the college, you can go ahead on the Common App the activities list, change that. Show every college the love. So every college, I'll tell you this straight up, because again, I'm on your side, parent side, um, should feel like it's your number one choice. So you apply to 10 colleges, email every college and say, hey, I would love to go to school. If you don't want to lie, that's fine. I appreciate that. You can say X school is a top choice of mine. You don't have to say my first choice. But if you're applying to the school, you should like it and want to go. Email them, update them, stay in the loop, add them on your social media, all that to, all the contact points matter. So keep showing them the love, make sure that they, think that if accepted, you have a good chance of going. Circle May 1st. May 1st generally is the deadline that colleges want you to deposit by. As your son and daughter are getting into early action, early or regular decision schools, you will start getting pressured by them to deposit. Again, this only helps them. Take your time. You're going to get emails that say, hey, you deposit now and you get a better chance at room and board, priority status, whatever. Sometimes, I mean, it can be true, like with, dorm selection, but, when you're looking at a huge bill, I think more important to wait, see your options, all of them, and then make that decision. Don't feel pressured. But May 1st, you do want to circle. Usually, a lot of schools will have that as an actual deadline that if you want to attend there, you need to deposit or around then. However, many colleges, they have deadlines that go into the summer to apply to. So again, like if it's March and you're not happy with your decisions, there are a whole bunch of schools, hundreds of them that still have applications that are open and live that you can apply to. And usually they get back to you right away. Let's go to the next one. All right, deferred. You talk about this. So with the Georgetown question, three main things. So you want to stay in the running. Talked about this before. Make sure that you stay on the regular decision list. A lot of colleges is automatic. For some schools, you need to check off something on the portal that says you want to stay in the running. So that's the first thing. Just make sure if it's still a school that you want, they know that you're in the running. Stay competitive. Send them everything. Anything that's good that helps you, send it. First quarter, first semester grades, another letter of recommendation, an email check-in, and continue letters of interest. Absolutely. So as a question, you don't want to bombard them every day with an email or letter that actually will harm you, but one or two touch points where you are emailing your admission counselor that's assigned to you, the student, not the parent. So your son or daughter should do this, and just letting them know, hey, this is still a top choice for me. Bummed that I get in the first round, but really want to go. If there's anything you need from me, let me know. Happy to send you whatever. But also stay in charge. One of my favorite things to tell students before they apply to college is you are in control right now. You get to decide. You get to decide what 8 to 12 colleges, 10 to 14 schools that you apply to. which schools are going to get your $50 per application and your time and sweat in the essay and all that. Once you apply, now they're sort of in charge and power. They get to decide if you're admitted. You still, for schools that are out there that you haven't applied to, are still in charge. And when you get your 5, 6, 7 acceptance letters from schools, you get to decide where you want to go. Don't feel pressured by their marketing, by their emails. Take your time, and stay in charge for sure. You have the power. Last slide for me. I think I'm going to end on the wish list, Kevin. And since we're coming up about halfway through, um,
No, you can keep going. I don't need the full 45 minutes to talk about appeals.
all right, yeah, I'm gonna jump into some questions too after this.
Yeah.
So your holiday wish list, whatever you celebrate, holidays coming up. So I talked about most of this, but just as parents for your children, make sure they're staying on the admissions radar. Again, a quick hello, a letter of interest, any updates, super important. Let's get the regular decision applications done. Some schools may be coming out next week with ED. Don't wait like to hear from them to then have your child work on the essays and apply. It's bad enough to get that decision from the school, like, dang, I didn't get in, but then like it's Christmas or maybe the end of Hanukkah, and you're like, I gotta work on a 800-word essay now. Like that's kind of sucks. So work on it now, before you hear from them. And then, the worst case scenario is that if you don't get in, you're just hitting submit, as opposed to having them work through the application. So try to get them done now. Have them done by, this weekend before next week. Mid-year grades do matter. All right. So this is both mid-year and final grades. So if your son or daughter got into an ED school or any school, let me start with ED. If they got into early decision school, a lot of those schools will ask for first semester grades, and then definitely your final transcript. If you went from an A student and you got a couple of D's, maybe an F, the schools have the right to rescind your acceptance based on how well you performed in school during senior year. Are you the same applicant that you were the first 3 years? If there's a drastic decline, they can take it back. Now, I don't want to worry anyone like your Johnny got a B in AP, calculus, BC. He'll be fine. They're not going to rescind it for that. A little dip is okay, but if there's a drastic change, and that has happened. I've had students that have lost their acceptances and it stinks. So stay on top of them for that. And finally, protect their emotional health. If they don't get into their schools, please let them know that it's okay. And as parents, I know that, it's hopefully second nature. But I've been doing this long enough where I've had so many disappointment, and, just upset kids and parents. And I get it. But the college process almost always works out. Like if you're not accepted into your dream school, maybe that second school that you did get into actually ends up being a better fit for you. There's so many good colleges out there. I get it where it can be upsetting, but stay positive with them. And just make sure that they know that you love them and will support them, and they will end up, in the right place there. So really, really important there. Let me jump. You can put on the next slide. I'll talk a little bit about it, but I want to spend my last few minutes answering some questions here.
Sure.
This is, if you've been in our other presentations, you've seen our funnel slide where we talk through how to get to that, your final list of schools. This is more just about how to get to that final, college. So eventually, usually by February or March, you should have all your decisions. So your 6 to 8 schools or whatever that you've been admitted into. And really, create a Google sheet, a chart on the refrigerator, whatever, of all the acceptances, the award letter info, what the final cost would be if you need loans, what that looks like, just so you have a full picture. How were you accepted into that major, or was it, is it something where you have to, you know, do something else for a year and then you can apply, personal fit, and score them really. And what's overall best fit academically, socially, financially. And now we're gonna celebrate. We're gonna buy that pennant. Parents are gonna buy the mugs that says I'm a parent of High Point
Bumper
University.
sticker,
Yeah, whatever bumper sticker.
sweatshirts, all the merch, all the
Yeah,
merch.
I'm a double XL. If anyone here is one of my parents, you can send me one. I like college sweatshirts. Um, so yeah, let me jump into the questions though. All right, my questions. Chat. Um, there we go. Okay. I'll let you do that one. Mm, if they do a deferred mission for UT, and is it a good idea to wait for next decision date, or it might not be the one for us? So I'm not sure what UT is. At Tennessee, is at Texas, maybe Texas. But if they defer you from early action, because University of Texas or Tennessee, they don't have early decisions, early action. They'll just defer you to regular admission, and it may not be the right decision for you. But UT, especially Texas, is so hard to get into that, like, if you're, it's just like the Ivies. If you're deferred, it's almost like a win. Like, all right, I wasn't denied. There's still a chance. So I would wait and see, and just see your options there. Um, it's not tough to find. Oh, this is good. It's not tough to find early decision one acceptance rates, but very challenging to find rates for ED2. Is there a place to find those rates? The answer is no. Does anyone know why schools may not want to showcase or release that information? I know the answer. What else? Kevin? Kevin, you know the answer? So it's very schools have to release their ED rates. They don't want to release any information except their overall acceptance rate, especially if it's competitive. Um, but they don't release ED2 because it just two reasons. One, it wildly depends on the year. It can change from year to year. So maybe one year ED2 acceptance rate is 10%, and next year it's 50%. And that's because they use ED2 to help them fill their class in yield management, depending on how ED1 and how regular decision is going in the applicants. So if they have, less students, maybe not as competitive of a class through ED1 or regular decision, or economics in the world have decreased applications, they may accept a lot more through ED2. If the reverse happens, really strong ED1, a lot of strong RD applicants, maybe it's less in ED2. So it varies wildly. And a lot of times, though, the acceptance rate, is so high, it will, keep you from applying ED1, which schools really want to keep you in. So they like to hide those numbers as much as possible, but it's a great question. Some FAFSA questions. Teacher rec letters, can they be attached to an email? Do they need to be sent via the Common App or via the counselor only? They should be sent via the counselor. All right. And that's, if your school uses Naviance, Score, My Learning, School Links, it's all done through there. But a lot of colleges will, if the teacher can get the admissions counselor's email, they can email it to them and they'll attach it to them, but it should go through the counselor. That's the easiest and most straightforward way. That's what's best way for keeping mid-year grades updated? I don't recall seeing any place in the portals. Yep, that's a good question. That also goes through the counselors. So your student should walk down to the guidance counselor's office in the new year and say, can you send my mid-year grades to all my colleges or a few colleges? They do that directly through their LMS, the like Naviance's scores of the world. Okay, I'm gonna answer one more, then I'm gonna give it to Kevin, and I will type out my answers to the rest in here. My kiddo has already applied to 20 colleges and used up her ComNap spots. She heard back from 7 of them, accepted. Congrats. She now wants to apply to 2 more schools because initially she didn't think they would take her, but after getting accepted in so many, she really wants to try her luck at the mini Ivies, but those schools only use the Common App. So how can she apply to those schools? That is a great question. I don't, I, I think the only way may be to remove a school from the Common App that she's applied to, sort of like the FAFSA. If you can't do that, then you're going to have to reach out to the college and see if they can, send you something. But some schools use the what's the other application that
Coalition.
thank you, coalition application. You can check out the coalition application. That still exists and see if they're on that and apply that way. Um, so that's a tough one though. Either see if you can delete a school from the Common App. If it's on the coalition, obviously do that. If not, you're gonna have to call the school and ask them for their advice. And before I hand it off to Kevin, we do these, big packages, which are great with families where we help them through every step of the way. If you're a senior or a parent of a senior that says, hey, Joe, I want to talk with you for an hour about strategy in the next week or after the new year, we offer hours as well. They're $2.99 for the hour. I'll let Kevin talk more about that, but you can sign up to work with me for an hour to help strategize, game plan, one-to-one, and just want to let you know that exists. With that, I'm gonna hand it to Kevin. I'm gonna get a glass of water, and I'm gonna be back to type out some answers for you.
Sounds like a game plan. Now into appeals. So you have to understand, and we've gotten so many questions so far about when do I appeal? Do I do it now? Do I wait? Who do you even send the appeal to? Right? Should you appeal? And I know that might sound silly, but trust me, there are reasons not to appeal. And then how, right? How do you even do it? So let's start off with when. Now, in terms of appealing, you may already have, for ED students, you might have the offer. Obviously, you at this point might have the acceptance as well. But if you have the offer, if you have the acceptance, for ED students, the timeline's totally different. You would appeal right now. But let's say that your student applied early action or regular decision. And let's say that you're getting acceptance letters and you're getting scholarship offers. That's not the full financial aid award. Now, that being said, nothing stops you from appealing for a larger scholarship leading up to the full financial aid award. But you really need to wait for that offer, because that offer that you're going to receive from the college, it's going to have everything that you're eligible for. It's going to have every grant you're eligible for, every scholarship your student's eligible for, even loans and work study. Once you have that, then you can appeal. But again, if you feel like you got an unfair scholarship ahead of time and you want to be proactive, you absolutely can. From a merit appeal perspective, I'll talk about this later, but I think there's also a benefit to waiting, right? And I'll go into a few reasons why. But main point here is you need to have offers, and not just the offer for the school your student wants to go to. To do a successful appeal, you need to have multiple offers. Unless your student applied ED, then you need to appeal as soon as you get the acceptance and the award. Now, from an offers perspective, you'll know it's the offer if you see work study and loans, right? That's kind of a telltale sign that it's the offer. And work study, it is considered need-based aid, and it's the opportunity to get a job, right? It's the opportunity to work for your student. Now, in terms of loans, the loan that I'm primarily referring to would be the federal direct student loan. Should be $5,500, could be broken up, subsidized and unsubsidized, but that's the primary loan I'm talking about. That being said, some offers also have the Parent Plus loan on them. Some offers also have institutional loans, meaning a loan directly from the college on them. So on the flip side, those two things I just mentioned, work study and loan, they're not free, right? You either have to work for them or pay them back. However, grants, that's going to be usually need-based. There are some instances where grant might not be based on need. And there could be federal grants like Pell, there could be state grants like here in New Jersey, we have TAG, and then there could be institutional grants. And to be eligible for need-based grants, it's based on your student aid index, right? So that matters. And it's also important for you to know your student aid index for many reasons. Now, scholarships, they're totally based on your student's academics, grades, GPA, test scores, all of those different things, even talents, right? That has an impact as well. And also, it's not on here, but athletics, right? Maybe your student's going to get an athletic scholarship. So different things that you ultimately see on the offer, but you will have a full breakdown, and you'll also have a full estimated cost of attendance for next year, right? So tuition, fees, room, board, books, and personal expenses. And you can see that here with the USC financial aid offer. And this is a couple of years old, but you can see tuition, right? Fees, other costs. And they go as far as estimating, books, transportation, personal expenses, and all of that is part of what you're eligible for in terms of need-based financial aid. Then you can see loans here, you can see work, study. But one of the things you'll notice is this Parent Plus loan, right? They're almost showing it as if it's aid, right? Whether it be the federal direct student loan, the Parent Plus loan, or work study, it's just important to understand it is not free. And you can see the remaining cost after aid. And we have the cost of attendance, and then total financial aid, and then here's the balance. So what's a little bit misleading about this, right, is that they're using loans to reduce the cost. And you need to be very, very mindful and very, very diligent when reading an offer to catch that, because it happens very often. And you can see here. Okay. Now here's another example of how a financial aid award looks. And again, direct costs. But then here on the right, we have indirect costs. And this student got a presidential scholarship, which is listed here. There's no grants or anything like that. But if you look at the estimated net cost after loans, it's only based on the direct cost, right? It's not based on the indirect costs, and the indirect costs are real expenses. So you always want to account for the direct, the indirect, all of the free money, because at the end of the day, that's pretty much how much you're going to spend out of pocket. Now, if you use a loan to help with that, that's fine. But I think that's the most important number to take a look at. And you can see here as well. And you can see let me actually go back there, right? They're showing me just 35, but the real cost is really 39. Just them using what they can to make the cost look lower. Here's another offer from Drexel. And you can see Drexel has a combination of school scholarships, institutional grants, but then they also have the federal Pell Grant, right? That's money from the federal government. Same with SEOG. That's another federal grant. So with that, you want to be mindful of what you're eligible for from, in terms of federal aid, what you're getting in terms of institutional aid. And then Drexel has it broken up. They're on a trimester system, right? So they have it broken up with fall, winter, and spring, and then they've got the totals. Now, go back here. That was all free. Now, if you look here, here's a breakdown of all of they call them additional financing options, but loans and work study. All money that either has to be worked for or paid back. And you can see the cost of attendance minus gift aid. Gift aid means free money equals the net cost of attendance. How Drexel breaks this down is the right way for families to look at this. Oops. Now, we've already had a couple of questions in the Q&A about change of circumstances, job loss, all that, right? The financial aid forms are based on, if you currently have a senior, based on the prior year, which would be 2024 tax returns. It's the end of 2025. Your situation may not be the same. And it's important to understand that, right? Especially if you've had a big change to your adjusted gross income. And with that, you want to be mindful of that 24 number, and then you want to be mindful of the current number and even the 2026 number when it comes to an appeal, right? Because income, your AGI, is the largest driving factor behind your family contribution or your SAI. Now, for future years, it's good to know that from an income perspective, students can earn, and this is actually a year outdated, students can earn $11,770, right, for the class of 2026, 2027 school year, before it counts in the federal formula. right? So $11,770 totally excluded. It's called the asset protection allowance, or excuse me, the income protection allowance. Now, any dollar above and beyond that, that's going to be assessed at 50 cents per dollar. And it's really important to keep that in mind if you're getting things like Pell or large institutional grants or really any need-based aid, because if your students busting their butt and working hard and earning a lot of money, it could end up backfiring if they make too much. So again, just be mindful of that. Now, from an appeals perspective, there's a lot of different components, right? So we have need and we have merit. And based on the type of appeal, you might have a different story. It might be a different person who's actually doing the appeal, right? For a need-based appeal, it really should be the parent. For a merit-based appeal, it should be the student. But at the end of the day, it's a story, right? It's circumstances within your family that are not reflected on the financial aid forms. For a merit appeal, it could be things your students done senior year that aren't reflected on their college application, right? So you really do want to get personal. You want to share a story with them. It's a financial aid officer or an admissions counselor who are reading these letters. So just kind of use that to put together, again, a very personalized, nice story.
Kevin,
Now, oh, go ahead.
sorry, can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
I want to ask a question from the Q&A. I think so, guys. We have about 30 minutes left of some really awesome information from Kevin. Kevin, do you want to right now put in some information for families so they know about how they can work with us in the chat?
Yep,
And
absolutely.
when you're getting that up, see if you can do two things at once. I have
Hopefully I can. We'll see.
a question. If initial FAFSA submission 2024 income is 2x 2025, how do we know if we are now Pell eligible?
2x, unfortunately, doesn't tell me what I need to know, right?
Right.
You could look at Pell tables to see if what your 2025 income is will put you in a position to be eligible for Pell. But Pell is not just based on your income, it's also based on your family size. That helps set the income limits, and it's in relation to the poverty level. So again, there would be no generic answer to that. It would be very specific to your family size, to your income, and you have to look at the Pell eligibility tables.
And last question while you get that.
Sure.
Should you appeal separately for merit aid and need-based financial aid?
100%. You don't even appeal to the same departments for merit and need. Need goes to the Office of Financial Aid, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but then merit goes to the Office of Admissions, right? So you're not only appealing to different departments, but you're also a different person's leading the charge, right? No parent should reach out to the Office of Admissions and say, hey, my student deserved a larger scholarship. It does not look good, and no admissions counselor wants to hear from a parent. They want to hear from a student, the person they accepted. From a financial aid perspective, no student is going to know that mom and dad's income decreased by X amount of dollars, or they had, $20,000 in medical expenses or these other challenging circumstances. So with that, a student should not be the person explaining that, the parent should. But from that perspective, it doesn't hurt if a student sends their own little short letter that says how badly they want to go to the school, right? But when it comes into the explaining of circumstances from a need-based appeal, it's really going to be on the parent. And for a merit appeal, it's going to be on the student, right? And nothing's wrong with a student even using wording like, I'm trying to make the prudent financial decision. And another school gave me a $10,000 increased merit scholarship, which would end up saving my family money over the 4 years, just trying to sound like they're going to be involved. Sorry, that was off the cuff, wasn't great wording, but just trying to sound like they're going to be responsible, they're going to be involved, and whatever money they receive will really impact them in their future. So again, different ways to appeal. And I think that's leading into what we're about to talk about, right? So kind of jumped ahead a little here, but with a merit appeal, it really would be the Office of Admissions. And again, a need-based appeal would be the Office of Financial Aid. Sometimes you have to escalate. You could even do both, right? So nothing stops you from appealing financial aid and also appealing admissions. Just know scholarships from here, right? From the Office of Admissions help meet your family's demonstrated need. So you can't go get a huge scholarship and then expect the Office of Financial Aid to come back with also a huge grant and bring your cost of attendance down way below your SAI. either a need-based grant or a merit-based scholarship can be used to meet need. Now, should you appeal? So I just want to be clear that it does not hurt to ask, right? So no matter what we're saying in terms of good or bad candidates, if you want to have peace of mind knowing you got every dollar you could get, it's okay to ask. That being said, I think should you appeal or do you have a good chance at being successful with an appeal? Or we want to think about a private college, right? Colleges that really control their own funds and have these huge endowments and can be a little bit lax about requirements for certain things. Maybe in the base year, if you have a senior, it'd be 2024, you took a one-time retirement distribution, right? Maybe you needed to take money out of an IRA to pay off debt. Gotta explain that to them. Maybe you just got divorced or remarried or separated, or even if it wasn't recent, but even if your marital status is remarried, separated, or divorced, usually a really good candidate for an appeal. Now, when it comes to appealing, if you want to be successful, the more detailed you are, the more precise you are, the more you know about how colleges should and do calculate these things, I think the increased odds. And the reason we're saying watch out for IM versus FM is because they're different methodologies, right? You don't appeal to an FM school and say, hey, remove my home equity. They don't even look at home equity, right? You don't appeal to an FM school about a non-custodial parent or a non-custodial parent's new spouse or anything like that, because they don't even look at the non-custodial parent information for the most part, right? So you really want to be specific and targeted, and knowing those methodologies and knowing what counts and what doesn't count, because that's going to give you better odds at success. Now, business owners, I think there's always a good chance to appeal if someone owns a business. It's a general statement, but I really do feel like it's true, because whether it be your business income, maybe it fluctuates, whether it be how you valued your business, even a lot of the CSS profile schools ask for families to upload business tax returns and information they might have gained from those tax returns. There's usually some opportunities to figure out one way or another to say to a school, don't count that, shouldn't count that, this is going to change. So good reasons there for business owners. Now, competing offers, that's a really good reason, but you have to be precise with this as well. You can't ask Penn State to match Rutgers if you live in New Jersey. It doesn't happen. That being said, you could ask Sacred Heart to match Marist or Providence to match Fairfield, right? Like there are schools that do compete for the same students. You could even ask Harvard, or excuse me, I'll say it a different way. You could even ask Yale to match Harvard's offer, because Yale uses home equity and Harvard doesn't, right? So, and you just want to be really strategic with the competing offers, the colleges that you're referencing as part of your appeal, but it is a great reason. Now, from a bad candidate for an appeal, it's not impossible, but odds of success of appealing a public or state university, they go down significantly. Or you probably have a 80% chance at a private school and a 20% chance at a public school. But we've been successful appealing schools in the past: UConn, Rutgers, Michigan State, Arizona, University of Arizona. It does happen, and those are just a few off the top of my head examples, but it does happen. It's just way more difficult, and you do need to be more detailed with your appeal. And really a big one too is if you go from talking about Pell eligibility, if you go from not being eligible for Pell to being eligible for Pell, it's not even the school's money. They don't have a choice to give it to you. It's the federal government's money. If you have zero change in circumstance, right, and it's a public university and your students' grades went down, right, throughout senior year, probably no chance in appealing. But now, in terms of looking through your offer, right, you should first know what should the college have costed you. And I'm going to hop into MyCap in a second, because we really do encourage every family at a minimum to create a free MyCap account, upload their offers, fill it out, just to know what these colleges should be costing. You need to know your student aid index. Your student aid index is going to determine how much need-based aid you're eligible for. It's going to determine if you're eligible for a loan subsidy, a lot of different things. And you also want to understand the full cost of attendance, that sticker price. And it's good to know that you're eligible for financial aid up to that full cost of attendance. But it's all in. It's everything you're going to, based on the school's estimates, spend during that school year. So it's like the real number in terms of what you're going to pay. And your need, right? How much are you eligible for? The difference between the cost of attendance and your SAI equals your need. Again, how much money are you eligible to receive? And then how much of that need will the school actually need? And you can find all of that in your MyCap account. So still have a lot more to talk about, but I am going to just spend a few minutes jumping in here to MyCap. Can you see my screen, Joe?
Yep.
Right, awesome. So fully complete your account, right? More info, the better in terms of student info, grades, GPA, parent info, assets, income, all of those factors. By putting all of that in, you're going to get your SAI, right? Your federal SAI is based on the FAFSA. If you've already filed your FAFSA, the numbers should be very, very close to it, if not exact. If you're seeing a huge discrepancy, you can always write into support. Your institutional SAI, the CSS profile schools don't always share your SAI. So if you're not sure, what a school is calculating to be your SAI, you could always reach out to a school and ask them in terms of a CSS school, but you might not see that on the offer. But so you can see here's the projected net cost at all these different schools on the right side. And then if you upload your awards, right? So you go here, add award, just say Princeton for a school that popped into my search. Hold on a sec. Add award. Say we're gonna add for Case Western. Right, and then you search the school name, and I think I'm doing something wrong on my end, but you search the school name and then you can add an award. You see here for BC, you click and you upload. And what you would do is you would take the full financial aid award and upload it. And then you'll see our cap projection, right? And you'll see that, hey, for this family, we had expected $50,958 in free aid. They got nothing, right? That's a red flag. That's going to then prompt, bear with me one sec. There we go. That's going to then prompt very strong, less likely, or low odds at appealing. And you can see here, BC, we're saying there's a really strong chance at appealing. So definitely do this for every single college or student applied to, every school that they get accepted, you get an offer for. Joe, do you mind putting in the chat the link to create a MyCap account?
Yep.
Again, let me stop sharing this and go back to our slides
Do you
here.
want to talk through the link that you put in there? Maybe send it again. What families can do with us to get started?
Yeah, we can take a break and we can just talk through that for anyone who's already been listening and like, hey, gonna need some help with this. So bear with me one sec. So now that we're almost towards the end, we still have some more to cover. But let's say you've gotten to a point where you're like, I need help, or you're just, I don't even know if I can appeal. I don't know if my student got good offers. We just need someone to talk to. Kidding about that, but what we're doing is we're offering a free 15-minute meeting, right? And we're going to talk through your situation. We really want to treat these as an assessment of your situation to figure out if what you got from the colleges is fair or unfair. But you might not have all the offers, and you may just want to talk through, hey, I had a change in circumstances. I lost my job. These are the schools my student wants to go to. Will I be able to appeal? But so, if you do have offers, great. Create a MyCap account, upload the offers, or at least have them available for the call. If you don't have offers, but you still want to talk through your chances at appeal and learn how we can help you, then you absolutely can do that. You can see here, this would only be free if you meet with us before the 24th. We are going to go on holiday break until January and then starting in the new year. But you would need to book by tonight as well. And again, you'd pick a time between the 17th and the 23rd. And if we feel like, maybe you haven't even filed the FAFSA, right? Maybe you haven't even fully completed college applications, or sorry, your student hasn't fully completed college applications, and you're really just, going to do this regular decision, getting a lot of stuff done towards the end of this month or in January, and you need help. We can talk through, what we offer in terms of full financial aid. Let's say that you have a really good chance at appealing, and we know we can save you a ton of money. We can explain what we have to offer with our appeals and paying the bill package. So different options there, and we'll always just try to figure out, are you best doing this on your own? Do you have zero chance at appealing, and unfortunately the offer is the offer? Or does it make sense to get our professional help? And will there be a meaningful difference in terms of how much the college is going to cost? So again, you would just book that free consult, you pick a time. We have tons of availability over the next few days. So definitely want to try to grab some time before the 23rd. Now, let's say that for a fact you're a DIYer, you don't want any professional help, like zero chance, you don't even want to talk through your situation. Great. We've got our premium membership where you can unlimited schools. If your student applied to 20 schools, you can put in 20 schools into the software, put in all those awards, watch some members workshops, and take the DIY approach. And then as of later today or tomorrow, there will be a recording here as well for today's presentation. So definitely some different options. And I didn't see any 27s or 28s, but if anyone has a 27 or 28 and they want Joe's help with admissions, we do also offer help with admissions and financial aid combined. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. If you have an underclassman, feel free to meet with us too. But let me go back now. Do you want to add anything here, Joe?
Nope, that was great.
Okay. Let me go back here to appeals. Now, when it comes to net price calculators, we even have, do you have the link to our net price calculator challenge blog?
I can find it.
So we're doing a net price calculator challenge, right? Because we find that so many net price calculators are inaccurate, and they're intentionally inaccurate in some cases. So if you find that, Joe, you can drop in the chat. But that being said, you have to be really careful, right? Don't completely rely on the net price calculator. Net price calculators are really never accurate for divorce families. If you call a college, they're going to tell you to do 2 net price calculators and add them together. If you put in inaccurate information or just estimate of your income or assets, junk in, junk out, right? The outcomes are based on the inputs. And in terms of recent FAFSA changes, some of the net price calculators don't account for them, right? They don't account for maybe any of the recent changes for the 2026-2027 school year, including the exclusion of small family-owned businesses. If it's a good result, good calculator, print it, save it as a PDF even. We see a lot of families make mistakes on NPCs, whether that be including retirement assets or some extreme business value or how they valued their house. The same mistakes that they typically make on the FAFSA and CSS profile, you're going to see those made on the net price calculators. And very, very rarely do you see a net price calculator have merit projections, meaning a scholarship for your student. I know American University has one, I believe Fordham does too, but some do, but it's very rare. For the most part, it's just going to be based on need. Now, the federal template, it's very basic, right? Do you plan to apply for financial aid? How old are you? Where do you plan to live? On campus, off campus? Very basic. If the calculator looks very basic, probably not going to be super accurate. If the calculator is very detailed, like Pacific Lutheran here, look at all the questions they're asking, not only gender and zip code and students' GPA and unweighted GPA, and if they took the SATs, and just really, really detailed. I think the more detailed the questions are, it's going to be a good sign that it's a good net price calculator and the results should be fairly accurate. You can see here, even going further, they're trying to figure out, whether it be alumni scholarships or specific scholarships related to specific majors, what the student would be eligible for. Now, if you're doing a calculator like this, you always want to provide the full family data, right? 70 questions, take the time and do it. Don't put limited info or that you know your EFC already. Now, from an appeals perspective, again, we've got two different types of appeal. We have the merit appeal and we have the need-based appeal. For merit appeal, right, student, right, what's happened senior year, any updates, better offers, things like that. But they still need to share a story, right? There still needs to be maybe some background, right? If another school gave $5,000 more and it would take $5,000 for them to go to the school they're appealing to, share that with the college. Show those competing offers, right? Don't just say, hey, schools X, Y, and Z gave us more money and have a lower net cost. Show them. Now, from a parent standpoint, appealing to the Office of Financial Aid, it's going to be a little bit different, right? Your story is going to definitely be different than senior year achievements. It's going to be based on what's happening in your life, expenses that are on the taxes, other circumstances, change in job, you name it, right? Appeals can get really, really detailed, but it's going to be your story. You're going to share background. You too could ask for a specific amount of aid. And even in a parent appeal to the Office of Financial Aid for more grants, more need-based aid, you can still reference better offers. Nothing wrong with that. You might have to be really, really persistent. You might have to follow up with the colleges. You might have to escalate. That is extremely common. Now, having your student involved from that merit perspective, please, like, don't never reach out to an Office of Admissions and ask for more scholarships on behalf of your student. On the financial perspective, they could still lead the charge. They could still be the ones to reach out to the Office of Financial Aid, ask for the appeal form, or attach your appeal letter to their correspondence. They can still be involved, and it just shows that they really want to go to school, to that particular school, and they're doing everything they can to make it work. You always want to try to get the appeal done before paying any deposit. This is especially relevant for anyone whose student applied ED. You can always ask for an extension, right? But you want to get that appeal done and get those results before giving them your money. That's really, really important. Now, in terms of reasons for a need-based appeal, the home equity is a really big one. Changes in circumstances, especially change in income, changes to marital status. We see it all the time where, again, tax year is 2024, we're almost in 2026, could have gotten divorced or separated since remarried. Medical expenses, those are not always on your tax return. But going back to what I said earlier about a business owner, there's almost always a reason to appeal if you own a business. One-time events like an IRA distribution or a one-time capital gain or even a sizable amount of interest and the money's no longer in that savings account, different things that you can use. And any strain on cash flow, but not cost of living to that extent, right? Think more maybe elder care or other expenses that are hardships and are really causing your financial circumstances to be difficult. But we work with families all over the country, even all over the world, and the school isn't going to care if you live in New Jersey or if you live in the Bay Area in San Francisco or in the middle of the country. That usually does not work from an appeal standpoint. Now, some results that we're really proud of. For Occidental here, the original offer was $34,000 in free money, right? You can see the Occidental grant and a scholarship for the student. The rest of the funds listed here, those are all self-help, meaning work, study, and loans. And the outcome after appeal, right? $62,043 in gift aid. But I know the appeal this is talking about, it had to do with home equity. And, obviously that really changed the cost of attendance for this particular family. And you can see the amount that was increased was the need-based grant, right? This was a need-based appeal. The merit scholarship stayed the same as it was in the previous slide. So that's $27,000. But every time you see an increase, you always have to think, well, college is 4 years, right? So that could be an additional almost $120,000 in free money for college. And this was an appeal we did last year. I worked with this family. They came to us pretty late, and it was in January, and they got nothing. They had twins going to school, two great schools, Boston University and Northwestern, and they got no no aid. Obviously, $90,000 a year is no small chunk of change, just a loan. Then after we did the appeal, they got an extra $45,000. And at Boston University, that's guaranteed, right? Your offer is guaranteed for the 4 years. It's part of their BU scholarship assurance. And with that, this family in particular saved almost $180,000 on one student. We also got them somewhere around the same amount for their other students. So just huge savings there. And it actually let their student go to Boston University. They were about to decline it. I do want to point out one more thing here too, right? I mentioned persistence and escalation. You need to know who to escalate to. It needs to go to the right person, and that can really make a difference. First appeal, this family only got the $28,800 need-based scholarship. We had to escalate, we had to really fight for it. But then Boston University came back with another $15,900. Right? They were actually ready to accept the 28,800. They were ecstatic. The student was actually going to play. I believe he was on the swim team, and they were ready to go. We had another family too with Tufts last year where they got an extra $10,000 and they were so excited, ready to go, ready to commit. It's like, no, you deserved more money than that. And because we know, like we see this stuff every day, we know all the individual college formulas and the intricacies of the appeals that we write, how much money a particular family should get. The family ended up getting $50,000 from Tufts. Had they not fought for it and escalated it and waited, that student applied early decision. They would never have gotten a 50 grand. They would have settled at the 10. So a complex appeal, right, could really be a huge difference, not only in how much college costs, but even your student's ability to go to a particular college. It's again just a huge outcome and huge difference for this family. Now, another example, and these are just some circumstances that you might think about in terms of an appeal, but this particular family had around 90 grand in income. However, they had 1.5 million in non-retirement assets in a brokerage account. And in 2024, the father's income dropped from 90 to 45,000 because he unfortunately became permanently disabled. He couldn't return to his profession. So that 1.5 million, that's all they had, right? That was their nest egg. That was their retirement fund. That was their fund for everything. And we had to explain that to the college. And based on that appeal, they got an extra $22,000, right? So that's a really big change, especially given what happened to this person's life in terms of their disability and even their profession. So goes a long way. And this was an appeal to Syracuse, and Syracuse gave no money to anyone last year, in all fairness. But this was one that I wanted to share. I did this appeal for a family who applied early decision, and we appealed all the way until it's either the end of May or beginning of June. And they ultimately got an extra $35,000 a year after 5 appeals and different reasoning, just going back and forth with Syracuse. But what we did was we leveraged some other offers. We talked about what the student did senior year, right? You know, what are some new accomplishments? How are their grades? Did they improve? That's exactly what we used. And we kind of had to change it up a little bit every time. We also shared that, listen, we did our homework. We used MyCap, and MyCap said that the student should have gotten a scholarship, and they got nothing originally. So right there, red flag that we needed to appeal. But yeah, no, a big difference for this family, $140,000 a year that they saved. Now, another thing, and I know we're almost out of time, but another thing I wanted to share here is that you really have to provide proof. This is an email I just got the other day from Barnard, and you can see all that they're requesting. Cash flow worksheet, a very detailed cash flow worksheet, 2024 and 25. They want to see how families are paying their bills, spending their money. Signed copies of tax returns, not just the e-signed, but a physically signed copy of the tax return. Documentation for private school tuition payments, a mortgage statement, checking account statements, a statement around grandparent support. So you can see this is how detailed appeals get and how complex they get, and how this family responds to these requests will really kind of dictate if they have a successful appeal or if they get nothing. And right now they're not getting any money from Barnum. So being detailed, but knowing that anything you say on appeal, whether it be medical expenses, whether it be change in income, private school payments, they're going to ask you for proof. And just to kind of brag a little bit, I'd say, Joe, right? But highlight some of our appeals from the class of 2025. 5 or 6 million in extra aid on appeal last year. We stopped counting around May and June, but just some incredible results where we saw some families get an extra $70,000, $80,000 a year almost right here. You can see for Colby, I think it was 74,000 to be exact, in extra aid. But I don't want to discount that some of these schools here, like Arcadia, that was an extra $2,000. $2,000 times 4 is still $8,000, right? It really makes a difference in terms of the overall cost. So just some really good outcomes. Kind of shows we know our stuff when it comes to appeals. And most common question, oh, well, the schools say, never mind, you can't come here if you appeal. No, appealing will have zero impact on your offer of admission. It's really, at this point, it's become kind of a mandatory step in the process. So just know that. But, all right, I'm going to share that link one more time in the chat.
Somehow,
And
some way, we went for the 90 minutes. I think we are.
well, like spot on too. We went for the 90 minutes and we were barely over. But hope that everyone enjoyed. Really do encourage that everyone take us up on that 15-minute consult. Just be prepared for the meeting. And it's okay not to have all of your offers. Like I said, it's okay not to have the financial aid awards. Just know your details, know your circumstances. And let us tell you if you have a chance at appealing, or if you haven't even started this process, let's talk through it. Make sure you're not missing any deadlines or anything like that. So please take us up on that. I just dropped that in the chat. Again, drop it one more time. We always have folks say that they didn't get the link. So dropped it one last time, but hope everyone enjoyed. Joe, I know I enjoyed your part, and always learn every time we present together. But thank you, everyone. We wish you happy holidays. We wish you happy New Year if we don't talk to you, but we hope to see everyone on a quick call. All right. Bye, everyone.